Long before the highways, luxury resorts, and glowing theme parks transformed Florida into one of the most visited places on Earth, the peninsula was feared by almost everyone who entered it. To outsiders arriving from Europe, Florida looked beautiful from a distance. Endless coastlines shimmered beneath tropical sunlight. Birds filled the skies above green forests untouched by industrial civilization. Warm ocean winds carried the scent of saltwater deep into the wilderness. But hidden beneath that beauty was a land capable of destroying entire armies, swallowing settlements, and erasing lives without warning. Florida was not originally known as paradise. For centuries, it was known as a deadly frontier where empires collapsed, explorers vanished, and survival itself became a constant battle. Even before European ships appeared on the horizon, Florida was already home to powerful indigenous civilizations. Massive trade networks stretched across rivers, forests, and coastlines. Communities built ceremonial centers, engineered fishing systems, and established military alliances long before Spain or England imagined controlling the region. The Calusa dominated southern waterways with fleets of war canoes. The Timucua controlled vast northern territories. The Apalachee built organized agricultural societies, capable of supporting thousands. These were not isolated tribes wandering empty land. Florida was populated by complex societies deeply connected to the environment around them. They understood the tides, the storms, the hidden rivers, and the dangerous swamps better than any outsider ever could. When Spanish explorers arrived in the early 16th century, they believed Florida could become another jewel in the growing Spanish Empire. Spain had already conquered enormous territories in the Caribbean and Central America. Gold and silver were flowing into Europe from the Americas. The empire expanded rapidly, and Florida appeared strategically important because of its location beside major ocean trade routes. Whoever controlled Florida could influence movement across the Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico. But the moment Europeans stepped onto the land, they encountered a reality far different from the stories they imagined. In 1513, Juan Ponce de Leon landed along Florida's eastern coast. Later legends claimed he searched for the Fountain of Youth, but the true mission was expansion, power, and imperial control. His soldiers marched inland beneath crushing heat, while insects swarmed around them in clouds so thick they could barely see. The forest seemed endless. The humidity drained energy from every movement. Fresh drinking water was difficult to find, and unfamiliar diseases spread quickly among exhausted crews. At night, strange sounds echo from the darkness beyond their camps. Many of the explorers believed invisible enemies were watching them from the trees, and they were right. Native warriors observed the Spanish carefully from hidden positions within the forests and marshes. They studied the newcomers' weapons, armor, and movements before launching attacks with terrifying precision. Arrows suddenly emerged from thick vegetation. Canoes appeared silently along riverbanks. Entire patrol groups vanished without explanation. The Spanish quickly realized Florida would not be conquered easily. Every mile deeper into the wilderness became more dangerous than the last. Among the most feared indigenous powers were the Calusa people. Living across the southwest coast, they controlled one of the most organized and militarized societies in North America. Their kingdom stretched through mangrove forests, islands, and coastal waterways, impossible for outsiders to navigate safely. Calusa warriors moved rapidly through narrow channels in massive dugout canoes, crafted from giant tree trunks. They understood the rhythm of the tides and used the landscape itself as a weapon. To European invaders unfamiliar with the terrain, the Calusa seemed almost invisible. Spanish expeditions repeatedly failed against them. Attempts to establish colonies ended in bloodshed and retreat. Priests sent to convert native populations disappeared or were killed. Soldiers struggled to survive ambushes launched from hidden waterways. The deeper Spain pushed into Florida, the more resistance it encountered. What was supposed to become another easy colonial victory instead turned into one of the empire's most frustrating and expensive struggles. But violence did not come only from warfare. Disease became one of the most devastating forces in Florida's history. European ships carried illnesses like smallpox, influenza, and measles into indigenous communities that had no immunity against them. Entire villages were destroyed within months. Families vanished. Political structures collapsed as leaders died faster than societies could recover. Ceremonial grounds became burial sites. Forest trails once crowded with trade and movement fell silent. The destruction spread rapidly across Florida. Spanish missionaries established Catholic missions throughout the north, hoping to convert survivors and strengthen imperial control. Churches rose beside indigenous settlements, while soldiers enforced Spanish authority nearby. Yet many native communities resisted conversion and labor demands. Others fled deeper into forests to escape disease and violence. Those who remained often faced starvation as agricultural systems collapsed around them. By the late 17th century, much of Florida's original indigenous population had been devastated beyond recovery. At the same time, another danger was growing offshore. Florida's waters became one of the most contested maritime zones in the world. Spanish treasure fleets carrying gold and silver from the Americas traveled past Florida's coastline every year on their way back to Europe. Pirates, privateers, and rival empires quickly recognized the opportunity. English raiders attacked Spanish settlements. French ships challenged control of the region. Smugglers hid among islands and shallow coastal bays where large naval ships could not follow. The sea itself became a battlefield. Pirate crews stalked treasure convoys through violent storms and narrow channels. Cannons thundered across dark ocean waters while burning ships drifted through crashing waves. Survivors of naval battles often drowned in hurricanes before reaching shore. Some pirates established hidden camps along remote islands and inlets, using Florida's labyrinth of waterways as protection against European navies. The line between pirate, merchant, and soldier blurred across the region as survival became more important than loyalty. To defend their territory, the Spanish constructed one of the most powerful fortresses in North America, Castillo de San Marcos in St. Augustine. Massive stone walls rose beside the Atlantic coastline, designed specifically to survive artillery bombardment. Cannons lined the battlements, while soldiers watched constantly for enemy ships approaching from the horizon. The fortress symbolized Spain's determination to hold Florida, despite endless attacks and disasters. Even today, its walls still stand as silent reminders of centuries of conflict. Yet no wall could stop Florida's most powerful enemy, nature itself. Hurricanes repeatedly destroyed settlements across the peninsula. Entire fleets disappeared beneath black storm waves. Wooden towns vanished overnight under floods, and winds strong enough to tear buildings apart. Crops failed beneath unbearable heat and swamp-like humidity. Mosquitoes spread deadly illnesses through overcrowded colonies. Roads dissolved into mud during endless rain seasons. Wild animals prowled forests surrounding isolated settlements, where supplies often ran dangerously low. Florida punished weakness relentlessly. For generations, European colonists struggled not only against human enemies, but against the environment itself. The land resisted conquest at every level. Swamps swallowed soldiers. Rivers shifted unexpectedly. Dense vegetation made travel painfully slow. Even experienced explorers frequently became lost in territories they believed they controlled. As centuries passed, Florida transformed again into a refuge for those escaping oppression elsewhere. Enslaved Africans fleeing plantations in British colonies traveled south seeking freedom among Spanish territories and indigenous communities. Some escaped through dangerous forests, while slave hunters pursued them across the frontier. Others found protection among native groups, willing to resist colonial powers together. These alliances reshaped Florida permanently. Communities formed between escaped Africans and indigenous survivors, creating new cultures built around resistance, adaptation, and survival. Over time, these networks contributed to the emergence of the Seminole people. The Seminoles absorbed influences from multiple displaced groups while establishing themselves throughout Florida's interior wilderness. They adapted brilliantly to the difficult environment and became masters of swamp warfare. Then the United States entered the story. After the American Revolution, U.S. expansion pushed aggressively into the Southeast. American settlers wanted farmland, economic opportunity, and political control over Florida. Plantation owners viewed the territory as valuable land for cotton and slavery expansion, but Seminole communities refused to surrender their territory peacefully. The result was decades of brutal warfare. The Seminole Wars became some of the longest and most expensive military conflicts in early American history. U.S. troops marched into Florida expecting quick victories, but instead encountered an enemy perfectly adapted to the terrain. Seminole fighters launched sudden ambushes from hidden positions within swamps and forests, before disappearing back into the wilderness. Soldiers unfamiliar with the Everglades suffered from exhaustion, heat stroke, insects, hunger, and disease. Entire patrols vanished beneath thick vegetation and muddy water. Florida itself became a weapon. The swamps protected Seminole resistance better than stone walls ever could. Tall grass concealed movement. Narrow waterways trapped invading forces. Thick humidity drained soldiers physically and mentally. Fear spread constantly through military camps because attacks could erupt from any direction at any moment. One of the most legendary figures of the conflict was Osceola. Although often remembered as a war chief, his true importance came from his ability to inspire resistance against overwhelming odds. He rejected forced relocation policies imposed by the United States and became a symbol of Seminole determination. American newspapers described him with both fear and fascination. To some, he represented defiance against expansion. To others, he became proof that Florida could never truly be controlled. Even after Osceola's capture, resistance continued. Many Seminoles were eventually forced westward during broader campaigns connected to Indian removal policies, but some refused to leave entirely. Small groups escaped deep into the Everglades, where American forces struggled to reach them. Hidden villages survived among rivers of grass and isolated wetlands, far beyond the reach of expanding settlements. Their survival became one of the most remarkable stories of resistance in American history. Then came the Civil War. When Florida joined the Confederacy in May 4, 1961, the peninsula once again became entangled in national violence. Though fewer gigantic battles occurred there compared to other southern states, Florida still played an important strategic role. Confederate forces supplied cattle, salt, and resources to support Southern armies elsewhere. Union naval blockades targeted coastal cities, while raids and skirmishes spread across towns and rivers. Civilians lived with constant uncertainty as economic collapse and military pressure intensified. The end of slavery transformed Florida socially and economically, but violence did not disappear. Reconstruction brought political turmoil, racial conflict, and deep instability throughout the South. In many areas, old systems of power resisted change violently. Florida entered the modern age carrying scars from centuries of conquest, slavery, and war. Then industrial expansion arrived. By the late 19th century, businessmen and railroad tycoons saw enormous financial potential in Florida's warm climate and coastal geography. Henry Flagler pushed railroads southward through dangerous terrain once considered impossible to develop. Tracks cut across swamps and wilderness. Hotels rose beside palm-lined streets. Wealthy tourists from northern states arrived seeking sunshine and luxury. During harsh winters, the image of Florida slowly transformed. The deadly frontier became a tropical destination marketed as paradise. Cities expanded rapidly. Land speculation exploded during the early 20th century as developers promised endless opportunity. Yet beneath the glamorous image, corruption and exploitation spread alongside rapid growth. Organized crime flourished. During Prohibition, land scams ruined investors. Environmental destruction accelerated as wetlands were drained for construction projects. And still, nature refused to surrender completely. In 1928, the Okeechobee hurricanes struck southern Florida with catastrophic force. Massive floodwaters surged across communities surrounding Lake Okeechobee, killing thousands. Entire towns disappeared beneath water and mud. Many victims were migrant laborers and poor black residents, whose deaths received little national attention at the time. Once again, Florida reminded the world that beneath its image of beauty remained enormous danger. After World War II, another transformation reshaped the state forever. Television, advertising, and mass tourism reinvented Florida as the ultimate American escape. Highways expanded. Suburbs spread endlessly across former wilderness. Theme parks rose where swamps once dominated the landscape. Millions of visitors arrived searching for fantasy, entertainment, and sunshine. Florida became a symbol of vacation culture, recognized around the globe, but hidden beneath parking lots, resorts, and tourist attractions remained the echoes of older worlds. Ancient indigenous shell mounds still survive beside modern highways. Spanish forts continue watching over the Atlantic Ocean. Forgotten cemeteries lie beneath growing cities. The Everglades still conceal landscapes that defeated armies for centuries. Hurricanes continue threatening entire coastlines every single year. and deep beneath the polished image sold to tourists is a land shaped by unimaginable struggle. Florida was never simply paradise. It was a battlefield between empires, a refuge for survivors, a graveyard for colonists, a homeland defended by indigenous resistance, a territory transformed by slavery, war, piracy, storms, greed, and ambition. Every generation that entered Florida attempted to reshape it. Some succeeded. Many disappeared trying. Today, millions visit Florida without ever realizing how violent its past truly was. They see beaches, amusement parks, luxury hotels, and nightlife. But beneath those modern lights lies a forgotten history filled with bloodshed and survival stretching back centuries. The illusion of paradise hides one of the most dangerous and transformative stories in American history, and perhaps the strangest part of all is that Florida's story is still unfinished.